Alright, should be my last video of the day. I have to get up early tomorrow. It's a response video to John on this whole inheritance thing again. I'll just add to the response you have gotten. It's not that hard to implement anything. I mean, you can always question details. How exactly is it going to take place? There's lots of ways to create a mechanism where the money gets redistributed. You could just increase the tax progressively. So the first $10,000 you give away, the tax rate is 30%, and then goes to 32% for the second, and 34% for the third, and so on and so on. And so once you start giving away millions of dollars, the tax rate effectively becomes 90% or something. By the time you keep increasing the amount that goes to your children, your own children. You sort of raise this whole nepotism thing, like why shouldn't people be allowed to be nepotistic, to think their kids are better than other people's kids? And intellectually, that argument has no merit. I mean, we can know what kids are separate from our personal attachments. There's no intellectual reason to make a distinction between your own child and some child over there. The child thing themselves are what they are. Your perception is irrelevant to the real quality of the individuals and their meaning. So theoretically, it's something that should be applied to the whole world. It should be this. We're not talking about those theories, though. We start here first. We can control our government. We can control what our country does. We can't necessarily control what the rest of the world does. That'll be their choices. So it's really not about engineering a solution for the world. It's about engineering a solution for the United States of America. That's where I live, and that's where you live, and that's where we can fix this problem. All right, I was kind of disappointed to see Lima had left some comments in your comment section. It didn't make any sense at all. She starts ragging on welfare cheats and the rest of that crap, like that has something to do with this equation. That somehow the poor and the middle class will pay the price for this redistribution. And it's a completely nonsensical argument. Unless the poor and the middle class have millions of dollars to distribute, how would they be affected in any negative way at all? Another distribution method could be that any estate that had a lot of extra money, you could just make a provision that you can give the money to the government, or you can give any individual you choose up to $10,000, but no more than $10,000. And so somebody like a Bill Gates could, theoretically give $10,000 to a few 100,000 people, or a few million. Pretty spooky when you think about it. All right, and that's the whole thing. You really have to start thinking about this thing. What money is and what the percentages are. It's a huge amount of money in held wealth. We're talking $30-40 trillion of resources. And let's also understand, in our current economy now, these very rich people think that we all hold, say, one of these dollars, as our assets, the whole 90% of America that owe the 10%. The rich claim that we each owe 3 of these, although we each only have 1 when we divvy them all up, or even average it out. So the average would be that we all have 1. They claim we owe 3. Okay, so we're in big frickin' trouble, because the only way we can pay back those 3 is out of future wages. We have to somehow create more wages, more productive work, so we can get paid more money, so we can pay back this huge, gigantic debt that we're in to this 10% of these wealth holders. The 5% really, 3% really. Okay, and the other equation, again, I hate to have to reiterate this, but this doesn't come from nowhere. The value of this thing is made out of productive labor. So if you took the money, if you suspended inheritance, just the passing on of everything over $1 million from any estate, and if you stop that transfer from to people, that welfare, that huge welfare program, the immediate result would be that every dollar, every one of these that you held in property or in a real greenback or in a car or anything that you held in, would double in value. Okay, so your real world, your wealth would double. Your wages would double. The value of everything you own would double. In terms of its purchasing power, in terms of its real value. For Lima, the welfare guy, his money wouldn't double, okay? Because it wouldn't be his money. He'd be still getting the same amount from the government, but everybody else would be getting twice as much. Every worker would be getting twice as much money. All right, that would be the real world effect. And if we applied that same rationality to how we distribute money to the non-inheritees, the Bill Gateses and the Bloombergs and the rest of the people who hold huge assets, if we limited their income, their capacity to generate preposterous amounts of personal wealth, you could triple the value of every dollar you own. Okay, so every worker, and if you just apply it to working wages, okay, if you just said the only thing we're allowed to get revalued is workers' wages, then every worker could have a 4 or 5 time increase in their salary for the work they do. That's the real world. That's the world we live in. That's how much wealth has been consolidated at that top. You really got to appreciate that. This isn't the issue isn't about somebody, passing on their shoes to their kids, or educating their kids, or giving their kids even a huge little head start, a little boost. Okay, what's at stake here is the ownership of America. What's owned. All right, the IOUs would be transferred back to the people who created the value that they represent. I mean, that's another way of looking at this. Think about the wealth. Think about that wealth that people own. And think of it in terms of an IOU, that they're holding a debt ticket. Okay? Now, is it really fair for somebody to be able to inherit a debt, an IOU, that somebody else owes? So some little punk can some little 10-year-old punk can be handed a slip of paper saying, I own your house. I possess what you're living in. You don't do things right, I'll take your house away from you. Even though I never did a bit of work in my whole life, I'm going to have control over your life. I'm going to inherit that control. I mean, come on. I've pointed the questions a couple of times and I don't get any response to them. We don't inherit driver's licenses. Why should we inherit control over the destiny and welfare of our fellow citizens? I mean, it seems a little more of a little more profound a power than merely driving a car. And again, what's the how do I possibly disconnect my perception of inheritance to a grotesque cheat in the race of life? I mean, explain how nepotism works as a reality in the world. If everybody was allowed, if every little henya could show up at the public park when there's a race for the kids and say, my kid is special, and say he's going to start way up here on the line, and some other kid who doesn't have a little henya mother show up, he has to start at the regular starting line because he doesn't have some mother to negotiate a better life for him, a better position in the world. You're going to tell me that would make any sense? That would be a ludicrous world. People would show up at the park just to laugh at how ludicrous the race would be. And that's what you're advocating. I mean, I could make other sports analogies, to baseball or to football, because all you're talking about is a huge cheat, a silly cheat. I mean, it'd be like automatically giving a baseball player a home run if his last name begins in a B, on every Wednesday night. So if your name begins with a B, you get an automatic home run. I mean, it would be a silly game. It would be a ludicrous game, and that's what you're defending here. You're defending a silly, stupid system, and you're defending it with really lame rhetoric. All right, the subject isn't welfare. You want to shoot every welfare recipient? I don't give a damn. Okay, I'm not talking about motherfucking welfare recipients. I'm talking about motherfuckers who are inheriting control, ownership, the throne. They're inheriting the goddamn empire. All right, and it's become an empire. The 3% of people own this country. All right, the most of it, and that's a real problem. It's not a little problem. It's a big fucking problem. So anyway, enough said. Tired. But whatever, just keep plugging away. I'm really surprised though, some of these comments are just so, how can I go through all this stuff and I still get this, like, inane kind of responses. And you're just, what the hell? I mean, haven't they been paying attention? Anyway, lament. Just babbling. I just figured I'll throw in some extra. Just because it's there. Like mountain climbing, it's there, you might as well do it. A little extra babble.